there's this sort of cliche about discovering your voice and finding who it is you sound like and then sounding like this person for your career. And it's always made me a little uncomfortable that there might be a kind of expectation that I like the way those 5 poems sounded, so this one will sound like that, and the next 5 will. And I have, I like the idea of ambushing the reader. You know, the reader has certain expectations. I want to thwart those expectations. And I'm drawn to poems that are up to a little bit of mischief, you know, that are going to play around with convention, with expectation. The poem that I want to write, the poem that I feel best about, is the poem that manages to be funny and serious at the same time. Life is funny and life is serious, and why not put all that into your work? I started out, I think, like most young poets, influenced by figures like Yeats and Eliot, and I was sort of full of high sentence, and everything was very serious and dark. Serious poems can be more serious for being funny. Funny poems can be funnier for being more serious. And when I sit down to begin writing, I don't know where it's going. You probably agree that the best poems are the ones that surprise you. And I just sort of, give the poem its lead and have it go wherever it chooses. And ideally, I will be surprised. This is a poem called Push. It's on page 24 of the book. And, anyone watching the show who's had kids knows that if you have had the experience of watching your child actually be born, you know that it's probably the most extraordinary experience in your life. Nothing can prepare a man for walking into that room and seeing the child born. And so this is about that experience. I'm sort of like the world's oldest fairly new dad. And this poem happened just a few years ago. This is about the birth of Alex, who is now 3. And so you're standing there in the delivery room, and you're thinking, this is the most incredible thing that can happen on the planet. You think that, but there are other people in that room who may not think this is like that incredible. So this poem is sort of about that experience and what happened as I watched Alex getting born. It's called Push. I'm trying to look as if I'm suffering. I have this anguished expression on my face, but it's wasted since I'm wearing a surgical mask. And anyway, the focus here is really on my wife, and the doctor is right there between her legs, and he's shouting, "Push!" And my wife is doing this astounding thing. She's pushing yet another human being into the world, a world that so far seems to be pushing back. And the baby's heartbeat is down to 90, so the doc says, well, I think maybe one more try, then we do the cesarean. So things in the room really are a bit tense. It's definitely a moment that demands a lot of attention, and my wife is gathering whatever shreds of strength remain in the shaking, exhausted sleeve of flesh her body has become, the blood and sweat and fluids everywhere, and this is it. When I hear the attending nurse standing just behind me saying to this guy in scrubs standing next to her, I think he's the anesthesiologist's assistant, well, just because Karen says she has a boyfriend doesn't necessarily mean she won't go out with you. And the guy says, his voice rising because my wife really is screaming quite loudly at this point, yeah, okay, I guess I should give it a try. I mean, what's the worst that can happen other than getting shot down and looking like a total fool? And the nurse says, as the doctor is shouting, push! Yeah, but hasn't it been like a long dry spell for you? Aren't you getting a little desperate here? And the guy laughs, and my wife screams again, and the doctor says, yes! and into the world comes the bloody head, followed by the naked, lovely, bloody little boy, insanely ill-prepared for any of this. And I guess the guy actually is going to ask Karen out. And I say, go for it.
That was Push from Blood Pages. A great example of the combination of humor and seriousness there.